We spend so much time and money trying to build our perfect wardrobe, researching fabrics, looking at high-quality stores, and even spending time digging at the thrift. But one thing I think we may not consider as often is exactly how to make that wardrobe last. After all, we want to get the absolute most out of those pieces after we find them. Like, wouldn't it really suck to just end up having to toss your new sustainable, free-range, organic cotton t-shirt after 5 wears because you just ended up staining it into oblivion or you stretched the collar to shit? And not everyone has the time and money to be dry cleaning all the time. So what do you do? That's why in today's video, I'll be sharing my best tips to take better care of your clothes so they last longer, stink less, and so you actually get your money's worth. I think these tips can apply to any budget and even most garments, regardless of whether they're fast fashion, thrifted gems, or high-end. And this video is kindly sponsored by my friends at True Earth, but more on them later. Tip number 1 is to do less laundry. That's right. Did you know that you don't need to wash your clothes as often as you might think? If my clothes aren't visibly soiled, stinky, or sweaty, then I don't always wash them after wearing them. And that's because washing, drying, and detergents can really be quite harsh on your clothes. So washing them less overall is one way that I make my clothes last longer. And some of these garments, like my wool blazers or my dry clean only pieces, you can't really wash in the washing machine, although sometimes I do. Keep watching, we'll get into it. So here are some tips that I do instead. And no, none of this means that I end up clearing out rooms because I smell like an onion.
So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time.
Although maybe that's really why my nickname is Stinka. Be a friend and tell me. Number 1 is to dress in layers. This applies much more in the colder months, but helps so much with minimizing the need to wash or dry clean things like wool and cashmere sweaters, coats, or blazers. Get yourself a breathable cotton tee that will create a barrier between you and any stink on your more precious pieces. This means less stink, less sweat, and you don't have to wash this baby as much. And we really love a good layered moment. So not only is this really stylish, but it is another intentional thing you can do when you're getting dressed to actually make your clothes last longer and minimize the need to have to wash them after each and every wear. Number 2 is to air out. Sometimes that's really all a garment needs. So I'll just hang the garment on the back of this door, or if you have a clothesline, then let it air out before putting it back in the closet for next time. If you're not a super sweaty person, then I find usually I can get away with wearing things 2 or 3 times, like a t-shirt, before I have to put it in the wash. And with my denim, I do this every time because, fun fact, I rarely ever wash my jeans. Tip number 3 is to get yourself a steamer. Not only are steamers perfect to keep your clothes looking good and wrinkle-free, but they're actually really useful to help eliminate odors. This is one of my number 1 tricks to not having to take my blazers to the dry cleaners. All I do is after each wear, or when I start to notice that it's a little bit stinky, by doing one of these, then I just run a steamer over it. Steamers can kill up to 99% of odor-causing bacteria. So it's a really easy and economical way to avoid having to go to the dry cleaner so much. Which brings me into my next point, and it's that if there's something that you love to wear, get yourself a backup. A simple part of why I don't need to wash my clothes as often is because I have some backups that I can swap out between washes. This is especially where I find I swap pragmatism over minimalism, because if you have a 10-item wardrobe, and if you do, props to you, but for me, that turns into a whole lot of laundry and probably a whole lot of your clothes wearing out a lot faster than you might want them to. And number 5 is to spot treat. Like, I don't really know what I sat on with these pants, but I don't need to throw them in the wash necessarily. I can just target the spot, let it air dry, and it's good to go for another day without going in the washing machine. For my whites, I like to spot treat with oxygenated spot cleaner for around 5 to 10 minutes before washing. This will get any pit stains, makeup, or sunscreen out of the clothes, just to keep them whiter and brighter for longer. If it's a really tough stain, you may end up having to soak it for a lot longer, but also make sure you check that the stain is gone before putting anything in the dryer, since you may permanently end up setting the stain, and that's a no bueno. And hot tip for all my makeup wearers out there, try the towel trick to keep these collars bronzer free. No bronzer on the collar, baby. But my eyebrows might have been rubbed off. It's the trade-off. Okay, all those tips aside, sometimes you still gotta do your laundry. And that's where I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, True Earth. I've been using True Earth laundry strips for years now, and I think it's honestly part of a reason why I've gotten such good life out of my clothing, because these are super gentle on your clothes. Their laundry strips are ultra concentrated, where one strip is good for one load. If you have a larger load, you can use 2 strips, and for smaller ones like hand washing projects, then all you need is half. I'm mostly partial to the fresh linen scent and even the fragrance free, because sometimes I am a little bit sensitive. And I love this packaging because it cuts down on unnecessary like laundry extras and plastic waste. They're also hypoallergenic, eco-friendly, fully biodegradable, and made in Canada. That's always a plus. So if you're looking to make a more eco-friendly but still effective switch in your laundry routine, definitely take advantage of the discount code that True Earth gave me, and you can use Christina10 to save 10% off your order. Thanks, True Earth. Okay. We're gonna actually do some laundry now. So here's how I do it, and before you all come for me, this has been working for me. Take what you need, leave what you don't. On laundry day, I do typically 2 to 5 loads, sorting them by type and by color. I'll do whites, darks, towels and bedding, super delicates, and my wild cards. I tend to wash like materials as well as like colors together. So for example, I won't mix dark towels in with my dark clothes just because they're both dark. Towels can be very abrasive on your clothes, so they get their own separate wash category. Same with rougher pieces like denim. So separating by type will be gentler on your clothes in the wash, and then separating by color will ensure the colors of your clothes stay true. Nobody wants a pink shirt when it was supposed to be white.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
The whites and lights I'll wash in warm water on delicate or permanent press. Darks I usually wash in cold to prevent any color bleeding and fading, and I tend to wash them inside out. Towels and bedding I'll wash on warm with normal or the bedding or towel setting on the actual machine to make sure all that bacteria, sweat, and gunk is taken care of. The super delicates are pieces that I consider really fussy. They're pieces that have hand wash only on the label or even dry clean only that I will wash, but I am knowingly being a bit rebellious with. If I am going to wash these in the machine, I usually wash them alone on tap cold water and on low or even no spin, and then lay flat to dry. And then there are my wild cards. These are things like dark indigo jeans or tops in deeper colors that could bleed easily and stain into your clothes. Especially if these things are new, I like to wash these items alone for the first time and inside out, since some of that dye may bleed out and wreck your other clothes. Okay, and hot tip for washing jeans, unless they're visibly soiled, I literally never wash these. And this is actually recommended by like the CEO of Levi's and other denim companies. They recommend not washing your denim that often because it can just help maintain the wear and the integrity of the jeans. And they generally just get better with wear. If I absolutely need to wash mine, if they're not vintage, then I will throw them in the wash, still on a gentle cycle and kind of by themselves or with other jeans that I'm okay throwing in the washer. But with my vintage Levi's especially, if you throw them in the wash, it can risk disintegrating this back tag, which is part of the appeal for vintage Levi's for me anyway. So if you absolutely need to wash your vintage denim, and they are Levi's, then just soak them in a tub with your detergent, but leave this part of the tag out, so don't allow it to get wet. Rinse it and then let it air dry. But there's something about a grungy, grimy pair of vintage denim, I don't know, it's for me. So now that I have all my piles sorted before I'm ready to wash, I make sure I check all my pockets so that I don't accidentally ruin my AirPods. I'll zip up any zippers to prevent snagging, unfold my socks so they actually get clean, and turn my stuff inside out to help prevent fading. Delicates like bras I'll either hand wash or put into a garment bag for added protection, and just be sure to avoid things like overstuffing your washer or using too much detergent, otherwise your clothes won't be properly washed or rinsed. It's another reason why I really like the True Earth strips, because the guesswork is totally taken out for you. Now that everything is washed, let's get into drying. I actually almost never use the dryer. I find with the dryer there's too much risk of shrinkage.
That's what she said.
Stretching and pilling that can happen, so I generally prefer to air dry. Yes, it does mean that the garment might not be as soft and it's probably going to end up a little bit more wrinkly, but that's where steaming comes in clutch. Some things I never put in the dryer are my delicates like wool, cashmere, silk, or my blazers, bras, and athletic gear. All of this I like to air dry. But if I do use the dryer, I tend to use the delicate or permapress setting for lower heat, unless it's towels or bedding, and then I just use those settings on the dryer. And instead of dryer sheets, I've switched to these wool dryer balls, which are a lot more environmentally friendly, and they still keep static away. But if you're not sure, just read the care instructions and you'll be fine. Now that our clothes are actually clean, we still need to consider how we store the garments. Because in my experience, this really does matter, and a bad storage solution can wreak havoc on your clothes. It can affect their shape, it can make them musty, or you can even get holes and tears in them. It's just not a good time. I prefer velvet hangers over the plastic or metal ones because they're slim, uniform, and the clothes don't slip off easily. And in my experience, they help prevent those annoying shoulder nipples that can just ruin your sweaters. And if you do prefer to hang your clothes over folding them, if you're gonna hang things like your t-shirts, insert the hanger from the bottom of the t-shirt instead of stretching it through the collar to help prevent it from warping so it keeps its shape for longer. And even though I do love my velvet hangers, not everything should be hung. Like your knits, for example. These I tend to prefer to store folded because knits tend to be heavier and they're a lot more prone to losing their shape. So if you have things like wool sweaters, cashmere cardigans, things like that, I recommend folding these instead of hanging them so they keep their shape for longer. I like to fold my knits stacked on top of each other, but if you keep your things in drawers, you can fold them in this KonMari method. I actually fold most of my clothes instead of hanging them. T-shirts I'll fold like this, just grab slightly outside the collar, fold the sleeves in, and then fold into thirds. Tank tops are a little bit more fussy, but I'll do the same thing. Jeans I fold like this. Socks I like to stack instead of folding to maintain the elastic. And if I'm feeling a little bit unhinged, I will fold my underwear like this. I think folding has a little less to do with clothing care and more so to do with just how things are organized, and so you actually end up wearing your clothes. And since I tend to organize my wardrobe in more of a seasonal capsule kind of way, it does mean that I do keep a lot of my clothes in storage. Obviously, only storing what you want to keep is helpful and having less overall, but the storage solution that you choose does matter. For me, I like to use plastic bins because they keep out moisture and bugs, but be aware that plastic also restricts airflow. So if you have a few more delicate items or have concerns about that, then you can also consider canvas storage bins instead. Be sure to regularly rotate through your stored clothing to prevent them from getting musty and just to make sure that moths don't eat them. Tip number 4 is to actually maintain your clothes. Just like any healthy relationship, you gotta put in the work. Same goes with your clothes, since they might stick around longer than that last boyfriend. So I think there's a few basic things that you can ensure you have to maintain your clothes and make sure that you're getting the best wear and just taking good care of them. A fabric shaver is absolutely clutch. You'll be shocked how easily one of these guys can refresh an old knit or coat in absolute seconds. Steamers we already talked about, you know why they're great. And some other things you may need are a basic sewing kit in case you need to do any simple mending like sewing on a button. And don't sleep on finding a good tailor. Instead of investing in a new garment, see if your piece can be salvaged by a good tailor. Sometimes it's all you need to make something old feel new again. And finally, before you buy, know what you're willing to tolerate when it comes to clothing care. This is sometimes yes, sometimes no, but get into the habit, whether you're shopping online, in store, or even at the thrift, of checking the garment label for the composition of the fabric and for any care instructions. If in the long run you find that you're not willing to take care of it and spend that extra time and money, then it might be worth it to skip it altogether, even if it's a good deal, especially if you're at the thrift. So that's everything I do to take care of my clothes. Some of it may be unconventional, and I'm sure I'm gonna get comments about how gross I am, but this all really works for me. If you got this far in the video, it was a long one, leave me a laundry basket emoji in the comments and let me know your favorite laundry or clothing care tip. Thanks again to True Earth for sponsoring this video. If you want to get 10% off your order, you can use my code Christina10. It'll all be linked in the description. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It is the best way that I can reach other people and grow this community. I want to get to 200K this year. So if you aren't already too, please subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.